The Regal Rabbits Banner is our third spring banner. It features spring versions of Palla, Marisa, Bruno, and Veronica, all decked out in bunny-themed outfits. We'll be covering the stats for everyone and discuss their new weapons and skills, plus I'll talk about a few builds to utilize each character. Let's get started. First up is Spring Palla, the second White Wing to get a Spring ult after Catria and possibly hints at a Spring Est for next year. Palla keeps her flying Pegasus but drops her sword for a red dagger. She is the first red flying dagger, so Palla is quite unique. For her stats, she has 30 HP, 37 attack, 34 speed, 17 defense, and 29 resistance. 37 attack is impressive and is second highest among all dagger units, plus she is also decently fast too, which means Palla is going to want to focus on damage output. Her physical bulk will be her downfall, while 29 resistance means she'll be able to do okay against mages. Overall, Palla has some good offensive stats and her skills back this up nicely. For Ode skills, Palla's special is Draconic Aura, which uses her attack stat to boost her damage. Her A skill is Swift Sparrow, which grants +4 attack and speed when she initiates, so that's great. Palla's C skill is Horned FLIERS, and that grants flying allies +6 attack and speed for 1 turn. One of the rarest emblem team buffs, Horned FLIERS is always very valuable. For Palla's new weapon, she comes with the Pegasus Carrot Plus. It's a 12-might dagger that is effective against armored units. Its second effect states if unit has weapon triangle advantage, neutralize status effects and skills that prevent follow-up attacks. Basically, this is saying if Palla fights a green enemy, she cancels out stuff like Wary Fighter. And it's only armor units who use Wary Fighter, so you can see that the Pegasus Carrot is very much trying to be a strong armor counter weapon. Keep in mind you can inherit this dagger to any other dagger unit, but since colorless daggers do not get weapon triangle advantage over anyone, you basically lose the second effect of the weapon. Now for Palla specifically, this weapon is totally meant to counter tanky green armors who use Wary Fighter, aka Mr. SURTR. It will also disable Legendary Hector's Thunder Armads, which is a nice plus. Besides armor foes, the only other things that have the effects that stop follow-ups I could think of are the new Cavalry Beast units when transformed, Mur's Great Flame Breath, and Sturdy Impact. Personally, I think this is a good dagger, although it heavily focuses on being an armor counter and only colored dagger units can really use it to its full effect. Palla also has a new B skill called Disarm Trap. In Aether Raids, if Palla is on the attacking team, she can disable bolt traps and heavy traps when she lands on them. So this is a skill purely for Aether Raids, and it will allow Palla to move freely while disarming annoying trap placements. It's important to note that this skill is only inheritable by dagger units, which is interesting. I don't really think this is a super crazy skill, especially since it occupies the B slot, but if you struggle with traps in Aether Raids, this might become an important skill. For example, the bolt trap unupgraded only deals 10 damage, which isn't that bad and can be countered by a healing tower. However, I believe it can be upgraded to level 5, and at that point it deals 50 damage, which is kinda ridiculous. Eventually people are gonna have the resources to start upgrading their trap towers more, and hey, maybe this becomes an important skill to have. Moving on to builds, Spring Palla is ready to tackle some SURTRs right out of the box. She will do a lot of damage with Swift Sparrow plus the effectiveness multiplier and will be able to easily take down SURTR in 2 shots. Interestingly, if you can use this setup with the attack +3 Sacred Seal to get to 56 total attack, a neutral Palla ends up with 1 damage short of a one-shotting a neutral SURTR, which study stands for. Keep in mind SURTR is reaching 51 defense and has 50 HP, so Palla can dish out serious damage to green armor units. She also keeps the armor effectiveness against non-green armor units, she just won't be able to stop Wary Fighter. For example, against a Wary Fighter's FEO, Palla won't attack twice since she does not have the triangle advantage. If you want some added safety, Fury plus Desperation is a good choice. Distant counter is always popular, so being able to bypass that is a good for squishy ranged attackers. Also noteworthy is that the other armor effectiveness dagger, the Sky Myogi, cannot run Desperation builds because it has built-in Hardy Bearing. Personally, I think it's an important skill, so I'm going to say that the Pegasus Carrot is the better armor slaying dagger. If Palla has Desperation ready, she can hit green armors twice in a row, and that can help her avoid distant counterattacks. So this last setup is one I'm not 100% sure of. Basically, I think you can combine the Pegasus Carrot with Wind or Water Sweep, and cancel out the follow-up penalty on those skills. You can do a similar thing with the Fire Sweep weapons and the Null Seed Disrupt skill, so that's why I think it may also apply to this combo. Palla would have to fight a green enemy, but if she outspeeds them, she can deny their counterattacks entirely while getting to attack twice. I'm not saying this is an amazing use of the weapon, but it's an interesting interaction if it actually does work. I haven't seen any proof as to how this interaction actually plays out, but if anyone tested it and finds out, I'd love to know about it. Kind of like this whole idea, Spring Palla is playing into a somewhat niche role, doubling down on fighting green enemies to use her weapon's full potential. Thankfully, green armor units are very common, so Palla should have a lot of work, but she also has a good stat line to use other offensive daggers as well. I wouldn't say colored daggers have gained a huge following, but they can have a place on a team. Moving on, we have Spring Marisa, who is another Flying Lance unit, a very competitive group of units, and we have tons in the permanent summoning pool. Marisa does make a good case for herself, however, with 42 HP, 33 attack, 38 speed, 28 defense, and 21 resistance. She is very similar to Shigure, and 38 speed is second highest among all Lance Flyers. With decent HP, attack, and defense, Spring Marisa will do just fine in normal melee combat. For her old skills, Marisa has reposition, which is very good, especially on flying units. Her C skill is Flyer Guidance, which allows flying allies within 2 spaces to move to any adjacent space next to Marisa. She is pretty much geared up for any Fire Emblem team con. As for her weapon, Flashing Carrot is a 14 might and inheritable lance. At the start of combat, if the enemy has full HP, the user gets +2 to all stats during combat. As with most seasonal weapons, their effects aren't somewhat tame. Finding full HP targets is pretty common, so Marisa should be proccing Flashing Carrot stat boost very often. Unfortunately, against enemies who are hurt even a little, this weapon does nothing, so definitely do not use it with skills like Savage Blow or AoE specials. I wouldn't say Flashing Carrot is bad by any means, but is the +2 stat boost worth having over -1 special cooldown or +10 damage on special procs? For Marisa's B skill, she has speed and defense link. If a movement assist skill is used by Marisa or targets Marisa, she grants +6 speed and defense to both units for 1 turn. I believe this is the last link skill combination, so while mixing and matching isn't easy, it can be done. So Marisa makes good uses, bumping her high speed even higher and giving her some appreciated extra tankiness. She can activate it herself with reposition or have flying allies move her forward with Flyer Guidance. While not a necessary skill, it's nice if you want more buffing options. For builds, we are piling on the stat points. Flashing Carrot is great with a stat refine, and the speed refine will give Marisa +5 speed when she fights a full health enemy. You can't really go wrong with attack, defense, or res refines either. To gain even more stats, Fury 3 plus Flashing Carrot's ability will be +5 to all stats, and if Marisa gets hurt, she can benefit nicely from Brazen Attack and Defense in the Sacred Seal slot. Since these are all flat stat boost or in combat buffs, we can still add on speed and defense links buff, which just makes Marisa a speed demon. I didn't have room to show it, but with everything active at once, Marisa can reach 59 attack, 52 speed, 46 defense. She even has a good amount of HP and resistance too. Since Gale Force tends to allow a unit to tackle multiple full health targets, I think Flashing Carrot can pair nicely with it. I think Gale Force builds would love Sturdy Impact if you can get it, and the +10 to defense will be nice to reduce damage. If you want 1 round Gale Force procs, then we need Heavy Blade since Flyers can't use Flashing Blade, which is just a shame. Marisa doesn't have that low of an attack stat, but even with Sturdy Impact and Flashing Carrot, you may want to run Chill Attack to make sure Heavy Blade goes off against tougher opponents. Spring Marisa may find a similar road to many other Lance Flyers, but her limited availability does hurt her long-term potential. If that's not an issue for you, she is pretty solid for offensive Flyers and can run any of the other builds that use the more common inheritable Lances. She's not exactly a rare unit typing in high demand, but Marisa will put out good results. Our third hero is Spring Bruno, who was actually acknowledged for once. Bruno is a cavalry healer, but is definitely a bit different from the norm. He has 41 HP, 30 attack, 24 speed, 35 defense, and 14 resistance. 24 speed is pretty darn low and will mean Bruno won't be very offensive for a cavalry healer. His 35 defense is highest among all healers, but his 14 resistance is lowest among all healers too, so he definitely is meant for physical fights. With low speed and extra low resistance, Bruno is pretty much dead to any magical attacks, and that will be an issue for him. If you use him, you have to make sure he avoids any and all magic damage. For his healing skill, Bruno has Martyr Plus, and combined with Miracle, that means if you actually somehow proc it, he will get off a huge heal. Martyr heals more if Bruno gets hurt, but he also has Dazzling Staff, which means he is totally protected when initiating. It's not bad, but already there is a weird synergy between his skill set. Bruno does have a new staff called the Ovoid Staff. This 12 might inheritable staff restores 7 HP to the user and adjacent allies at the start of every turn. As far as I know, this is the only staff that passively heals at the start of a turn, and also will heal Bruno too. The Heron Dancers have a similar effect, but theirs works up to 2 spaces, and if you pair them together, that could mean 14 HP for your other allies. This is an interesting staff because while 7 HP isn't massive, it works every turn, it heals the healer themselves, and it heals multiple allies potentially. For Bruno specifically, the passive heal kind of works against Martyr Plus, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Bruno can be a great user of this weapon thanks to his new A skill. So the push skills are back from the dead. I think there was only one other variation and they weren't that amazing, but hey, they are one of the few stat boosters healers can actually use. Basically, if the user is at full HP at the start of combat, then attack and defense push will grant +5 attack and defense. but if they make an attack, it will deal 1 damage after combat. So this is a one-time effect until your unit gets back up to full HP. Previously, this would be an issue after the first round of combat. However, with the Avoid staff, Bruno will heal himself on the next turn, which means attack and defense push will be active again. This is a very odd A skill, and the push skills aren't exactly that high in demand because they are awkward to use. If you ask me, the bond skills or solo skills will just be easier to activate. For builds, we've pretty much covered how Bruno's base kit should function, with the Avoid staff allowing him to use attack and defense push every turn. With his low speed, Bruno won't be dishing out tons of damage since he won't double often. Still, refining the Avoid staff with Wrathful staff makes Bruno a colorless mage who can at least offer 1 solid hit for around 10-20 damage. Personally, I'd replace Martyr Plus with something else like Recover Plus or Restore Plus, but it's entirely up to you. With attack and defense push, Bruno ends up with 40 defense, so if you want to give him quick riposte, he can at least retaliate against ranged physical damage for your team. You can also use quick riposte in the B slot if you want to be crazy and give Bruno close counter. I can see this working, but I would not recommend doing it unless you have tons of extra close counter fodder. Bruno will basically be tanking melee attacks with his high defense, and Avoid staff with Martyr Plus can heal him up on the next turn. We replace attack and defense push with the attack and defense bond Sacred Seal, and you need quick riposte for any chance at KOing attackers. This build is really just for keeping Bruno alive while providing some damage. He's not going to be a crazy enemy phase tank, especially since he doesn't have a damage special. If you really want to do a build like this in terms of pure numbers, Bruno as a cavalry healer just can't compete with someone like Winter Erica, who has like 20 more total stat points. It's interesting to think about, but not super practical, especially since any magic damage will end Bruno anyway. Our last unit is Spring Veronica, who is a flying green mage. There's a good chance many players don't have a lot of flying mages, and I think they are a very powerful class, with Veronica being another good choice. She has 30 HP, 35 attack, 36 speed, 16 defense, and 25 resistance. Her only real competition is Flying Nino, if you want a fast green mage flyer, and comparatively, Veronica sacrifices 2 speed for 2 more attack. Still, 35 attack and 36 speed is very good for a mage, and Spring Veronica will be able to dish out a lot of damage. For Ode skills, Veronica has Glimmer as a special, which will be fine and can be changed for Moonbow. Her B skill is Cho Res, giving the highest res enemy a fat -7 res debuff. Obviously that's a good thing since it means Veronica will be doing more damage and her magic damage allies also benefit. Veronica is the only one to get a unique weapon this time, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce whatever that is. Veronica's egg has 14 might and grants a flat +3 speed, bumping her up to 39 speed, which is pretty solid. At the start of combat, if Veronica's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, she gets +4 to all stats during combat. Now this is a simple stat boosting tome, but does require Veronica to be on high HP. It will be strong for her first battle, but if she takes damage, you need a healer or some way to recover HP. This is a pretty simple weapon, but it takes Veronica's stats to some impressive levels. She'll reach 53 attack with the weapon equipped, 43 speed, 20 defense, and 29 res. Those are great numbers considering that's just the egg alone. Veronica's new A skill is Green Dual Flying. It grants +5 HP and increases a Green Flyer's arena score for matchmaking. Basically, one aspect for arena scoring revolves around unit base stat totals, and the dual skills increase that number just for scoring purposes. Besides the +5 HP, it does nothing else for actual battle. So it's an okay skill for Veronica since she has a weapon that grants a lot of extra stats. It can be replaced, however. Some of the best users of this skill will be dancers, and our green flying dancers include New Year's Azura and Raisin. Now for builds, Spring Veronica can actually just use most of her base kit. Reaching 43 speed when her egg is active is very impressive, and if you want to keep Green Dual Flying, it's an okay option. With the extra HP and the added defensive stat boost, Veronica can take some solid hits, but realistically, she will need a way to regain HP if you want that +4 stat boost. You can run the egg with Desperation if you can manage to get Veronica to exactly 75% HP, but that is just a lot of hassle, and so many things can affect that. Veronica can dish out great damage, but needs to stay healthy if you want her to consistently perform well. Some other skill options you can mix in include an offensive A skill like Swift Sparrow or Death Blow. You probably want to avoid Fury this time because of the HP condition, and that also means Desperation is not a great choice either. If you want self-healing, Veronica can try Mystic Boost if you want to also fight some dragons, or just good old Renewal. For Sacred Seals, Distant Defense might be nice since with the egg that's +10 extra res to work with, and if Veronica can stay above that 75% HP threshold after a fight, it's totally worth it. Overall, if you use the egg, Veronica gets a lot of extra stats but needs to watch her HP. There's not a lot of tome variety, but Blade Tomes are always the right right answer if you just want pure damage instead. If you want a fast Blade Tongue green mage flyer and don't have Flying Nino, then Spring Veronica can get the job done. She requires some protection if you keep her unique weapon, but her great offensive stats can easily be worked with if you exchange it for something else. That concludes the Spring Banner. Let me know if any of these units interest you and will you be trying to get them. If you need orbs, we have a Tempest Trials coming up soon, and the free reward unit is Spring Loki. I think she'll be a popular unit for more than a couple reasons, so if you aren't planning on summoning for this banner, look forward to getting her. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video.